Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Frontier, watching the stars through the main window. The ship carried 50,000 people to a new world where they could start fresh lives. His wife Lisa worked as the chief doctor, taking care of everyone's health during the long journey. Their daughter Amy, only 16 years old, helped in the ship's school teaching younger children. The journey had been peaceful for 8 months. People were excited about reaching their new home planet in just 2 more weeks. Jake felt proud knowing he was helping so many families find a better life. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they moved through deep space. Everything changed when the alarm started screaming. "Captain, we have ships approaching fast," said Ryan Blake, the tactical officer. His voice was tight with worry. "They're not responding to our calls." Jake moved to his command chair and pressed the communication button. "This is Captain Morrison of the civilian vessel New Frontier. Please identify yourselves." The answer came in a cold, harsh voice that made everyone on the bridge freeze. "Humans, you will stop your ship immediately. We are the Vex High Empire. You have entered our territory without permission. 5 massive alien warships surrounded the New Frontier. They were dark and covered in sharp edges that looked like weapons. Each ship was twice the size of the human vessel and bristled with gun turrets." Jake had never seen anything so frightening. "We mean no harm," Jake said carefully. "We're just colonists looking for a new home. We didn't know this was your space." "All space belongs to the Vex High Empire," the alien voice replied. "You will surrender your ship for processing. Your people will serve the Empire as workers." Jake's heart sank. He knew what processing meant from the stories other ships had told. The aliens would take everyone as slaves, separating families and sending them to work in mines and factories until they died. "We request safe passage to another system," Jake said. "We have women and children aboard. Surely we can reach an agreement." The alien commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Humans are weak creatures who cry over their dead. You will learn to obey, or you will die. You have 10 minutes to surrender." Down in the medical bay, Lisa Morrison was checking on pregnant women when the announcement came over the ship's speakers. The alien demands made her blood run cold. She had worked so hard to keep everyone healthy during the journey. Now these monsters wanted to make them all slaves. Amy Morrison was in the school teaching children about their new planet when the alarm started. The kids looked scared and confused. She tried to stay calm and tell them everything would be okay, but her hands were shaking. On the bridge, Jake looked at his crew. They were all good people who had volunteered to help the colonists. Ryan Blake had been his friend for 10 years. Sam Carter, the chief engineer, had 3 kids of his own on the ship. They all waited for his decision. "Captain, we can't let them take our people," Ryan said quietly. "These aliens don't understand mercy. They only understand strength." Jake knew Ryan was right, but the New Frontier was a colony ship, not a warship. They had some basic weapons for protection against asteroids and space pirates, but nothing that could fight real battleships. "We have families to protect," Jake said. "I won't start a fight we can't win." The 10 minutes passed too quickly. The alien commander spoke again, his voice full of mockery. "Your time is up, humans. Since you think you can negotiate with the Vex High Empire, we will show you what happens to those who waste our time." Without warning, the alien ships fired. Bright energy beams struck the New Frontier's hydroponics bay, where people grew food for the journey. The explosion was massive. Walls crumbled, and the vacuum of space sucked out air and debris, and people. Jake watched in horror as the section where 200 colonists lived and worked simply vanished. Men, women, and children were gone in seconds. The ship's emergency systems sealed the breach. But it was too late for those who had been caught in the blast. Lisa's voice came over the communication system, filled with panic. Medical emergency in Section 7. We have wounded everywhere. I need all medical teams now. Jake ran to the damaged area and saw the nightmare. Injured people lay in the corridors, some barely alive. Lisa worked frantically to save them, but many were beyond help. The smell of burned metal and worse things filled the air. Amy found her father, standing over a young mother who had been teaching with her. The woman's 3 children were crying beside her body. Amy had never seen her father cry before, but tears ran down his face as he knelt beside the family. "Dad, why do they hate us so much?" Amy asked. "We never did anything to them." Jake looked at his daughter and realized the truth. The Vex High didn't hate humans. They simply saw them as less than animals. To these aliens, killing humans was no different from swatting insects. "They don't see us as people," Jake said quietly. "To them, we're just things to be used." Lisa worked for hours trying to save the wounded. Too many died despite her efforts. The children were the worst part. Their small bodies couldn't handle the injuries from the attack. She held them as they died, whispering that they were brave and that their families loved them. At night, Jake stood in his quarters looking at a picture of Earth. He had always believed that talking could solve any problem. He had spent his whole life avoiding fights and finding peaceful solutions. But some creatures didn't understand peace. They only understood violence. Jake opened a secure communication channel that he had hoped never to use. His voice was steady and cold as he spoke into the microphone. "This is Captain Morrison. Authorization code Alpha 77. Activate Protocol 0. All sleeping personnel report to stations immediately. The mission parameters have changed. Throughout the ship, hidden panels slid open. Weapons that looked like cargo containers began to unfold. People who had been listed as colonists woke up from special sleeping chambers, but they weren't farmers or teachers. They were soldiers. The new frontier had been built as more than a colony ship. It was a disguised military vessel, ready to defend human space if needed. Jake had prayed they would never need to use it. Jake sent one final message toward Earth, knowing it would take months to arrive. His voice carried all the pain and anger of a man who had seen innocent people murdered. "Earth Command, this is Morrison. The Vex High have shown us what they think of human life. They killed our people. They killed our children. They want a war." His voice became hard as steel. "Give them one." 6 months after the New Frontier attack, the message finally reached Earth. President Maria Rodriguez sat in her office, reading the report for the 3rd time. The words made her sick to her stomach. 200 innocent people murdered just for asking to pass through space. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Every television channel showed the same horrifying images that Jake Morrison had sent. Amy Morrison's face appeared on screens everywhere as she talked about watching children die. The girl's brave words made millions of people cry with anger. "They killed families," Amy said in the recording. "They killed teachers and doctors and little kids who just wanted to see their new home. They laughed about it. They said we were weak because we cried for our dead." Paul Stevens, the most famous news reporter on Earth, could barely control his emotions as he read the story. His own daughter was Amy's age. The thought of aliens murdering her made his hands shake with rage. "These monsters think humans are weak," Paul said on his show. "They think we're soft because we care about each other. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Protests erupted in every major city. People carried signs demanding war against the Vex High Empire. They chanted Amy Morrison's name and called for revenge. The crowds were so large that city streets couldn't hold them all. General Colin Hayes watched the protests from his office window. He had been preparing for this day for years, hoping it would never come. Now that it was here, he felt a cold satisfaction. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. "Madam President," he said into his phone, "the people have made their choice. Give me the order, and I'll give you a war." President Rodriguez knew there was no other choice. The HFY had shown they would kill any humans they found. There could be no peace with creatures like that. "Do it," she said simply. On Titan Base, the secret research station orbiting Saturn, Dr. Alex Bennett got the call he had been waiting for. His team had spent years developing new weapons that could punch through any known armor. They called them phase cannons because they could shift their shots to pass through shields like they weren't there. "Nina, it's time," he told his partner. Dr. Nina Walsh. She had been working on smart computer systems that could learn how enemies fought and adapt to beat them. "The phase technology is ready," Nina said. "The computers can learn and change tactics faster than any alien can think. But Alex, once we give this to the military, there's no going back." "Good," Alex replied. "After what they did to those families, I don't want to go back." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison and the survivors of the New Frontier had found shelter on a mining station in the asteroid belt. The hidden Marines from his ship, led by Major Kyle Rogers, had been conducting hit-and-run attacks on HFY supply ships. "Sir, we hit another convoy yesterday," Kyle reported. "Destroyed 3 cargo ships carrying weapons to their forward bases. The aliens are getting angry." Jake nodded grimly. The attacks wouldn't win the war, but they were making the HFY pay for every day they stayed in human space. More importantly, they were showing other species that the supposedly invincible empire could be hurt. Amy Morrison had become the voice of human resistance. Her daily broadcasts reached every human colony and many alien worlds. She spoke simply but powerfully about the need to fight back against bullies. "They think we're weak because we love our families," Amy said in one broadcast. "They think we're soft because we cry for our dead. But love makes us strong. Love makes us fight harder than they ever could." Her words were translated into dozens of alien languages. Species that had been enslaved by the HFY for centuries began to whisper about rebellion. The aliens had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten what hope looked like. On the HFY homeworld, Admiral Kethvar received reports of the human attacks with growing irritation. How dare these primitive creatures resist the Empire? They were supposed to submit like all the others. "Humans are emotional fools," he told his officers. "They waste resources on the weak and defective. They cry over their dead instead of simply making more. We will crush them easily." His subordinates agreed, but privately, some wondered if the admiral truly understood what they were facing. The humans fought with a fury that none of them had seen before. They seemed to get stronger with each loss, not weaker. Back on Earth, the war machine was awakening. Factories that had made cars and computers now produced weapons and armor. Shipyards worked day and night building new vessels. The entire planet had become focused on one goal, making the HFY pay. Dakdas and its phase cannons were installed on every new ship. Nina Walsh's adaptive computers were connected to all weapons systems. For the first time in human history, they had technology that was truly superior to their enemies. Admiral Tony Martinez stood on the bridge of the new flagship, Retribution. The ship was named for the victims of the New Frontier, and everyone aboard knew they were fighting for more than just victory. They were fighting for justice. "Admiral, the fleet is ready," reported Captain Helen Brooks from the destroyer Vengeance. 500 ships, all equipped with the new weapons. The aliens won't know what hit them. Martinez looked at the stars and thought about the families who had died. The HFY had started this war by murdering innocents. Now they would learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," he announced to the fleet. "We're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every human who ever looked at the stars and dreamed of a better life. We're fighting for every child who will never grow because of alien cruelty. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will not be pushed around." The fleet began to move, 500 ships carrying the hopes and anger of an entire species. They headed for the Vex-High system of Xerion Prime, where the Empire kept one of its main military bases. On the mining station, Jake Morrison watched the Earth fleet pass by. His daughter Amy stood beside him, no longer the frightened girl she had been 6 months ago. She had become a symbol of human strength, and her broadcasts had inspired billions of people. "Dad, do you think we can win?" she asked. Jake thought about all the people who had died, all the families torn apart by alien cruelty. He thought about the new weapons and the determination he saw in every human face. "Amy, the Vex-High made one big mistake," he said. "They thought we were weak because we care about each other. But caring is what makes us strong. It's what makes us human." Behind them, the Earth fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's promise of retribution to the stars. The Vex-High Empire had wanted a war with humanity. Now they were going to get one. The sleeping giant had awakened, and its anger would shake the galaxy. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Xerion Prime system. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching his screens as they showed the massive Vex-High military base orbiting the planet. Hundreds of alien ships moved between giant construction yards where new warships were being built. "They have no idea we're coming," reported Captain Brooks from the Vengeance. "Their sensors are focused on the inner system. They think they're safe." Martinez smiled grimly. The Vex-High had grown too comfortable in their superiority. They had never faced an enemy who could match their technology. Today, that would change. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," he announced. "Remember why we're here. Remember the families on the new frontier. Remember every human colony they've destroyed. Today, we make them pay." The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. The new phase cannons were charged and ready. Dr. Bennett's weapons could punch through any shield the aliens had. Dr. Walsh's adaptive computers were learning the enemy's movements and preparing counterattacks. On the Vex-High command station, Admiral Kethfer was reviewing reports when the alarms started screaming. His officers ran to their stations, confusion clear on their faces. "Sir, we have multiple ships approaching," reported his tactical officer. They're human ships, hundreds of them." Kethfer laughed coldly. "Impossible. Humans don't have the technology for a fleet that size. It must be a trick." But the screens didn't lie. 500 human warships were approaching at combat speed, their weapons already powering up. The alien admiral's laughter died in his throat. "All ships, attack immediately," he ordered. "Destroy these primitives before they can retreat." The first battle began around the orbital shipyards. Lieutenant Commander Kate Wilson led a squadron of human fighters against the massive construction platforms. Her ships were small and fast, designed to slip through heavy defenses and strike at vital targets. "Blue Squadron, follow me in," Kate called to her pilots. "Hit the power cores and get out. Don't try to be heroes." The fighters dove through a storm of alien fire. Their new shields held against weapons that should have destroyed them instantly. Lieutenant Dan Foster, flying beside Kate, whooped with joy as his phased torpedoes tore through a Vex-High battleship's armor like paper. "Kate, their shields aren't stopping anything," Dan reported. "It's like they're not even there." "That's the point," Kate replied. "Now let's show them what happens when you mess with human families." The alien defenders were completely unprepared for weapons that ignored their defenses. Ships that had seemed invincible for centuries suddenly found themselves helpless against human firepower. Phase cannons punched through their hulls, while adaptive computers learned their tactics and countered them instantly. On the planet's surface, Colonel Light Thompson's Marines were preparing for their own assault. They had been launched in special pods that could penetrate the planet's defenses. Their job was to capture the main command center and gather intelligence about Vex-High military strength. "Remember, boys," Thompson told his men, "these aliens think we're weak because we care about our people. Let's show them what that caring looks like when it gets angry." The Marines hit the ground running. Their new armor could stop alien weapons, while their phase rifles cut through enemy positions like they were made of paper. The Vex-High soldiers had never fought humans before, and they were shocked by the ferocity of the attack. Vex-High tactics relied on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. They had never faced an enemy who fought with such personal rage. Every human Marine was thinking about the families killed on the new frontier, and that made them fight harder than the aliens could understand. Back in space, the battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. The adaptive computers were learning alien tactics faster than the Vex-High could change them. Every minute that passed, human weapons became more accurate while their defenses got stronger. "Admiral, we're reading massive explosions in the shipyards," reported Kate Wilson. "Dan took out 3 battleships in one run, but—" Her voice broke. "He didn't make it out. His ship was caught in the explosion." Martinez felt the loss like a physical blow. Dan Foster had been a good pilot and a brave man, but his sacrifice had destroyed ships that could have killed thousands of humans. That was the price of war, and Martinez knew it wouldn't be the last. "Kate, pull your squadron back," he ordered. "You've done enough damage. Let the big guns finish the job." The human battleships moved into position and began their final assault. Phase cannons tore through the alien space station's defenses, while boarding parties captured key sections. The Vex-High had never faced such coordinated and determined attackers. On the command deck of the enemy station, Admiral Kethvar watched his empire's power crumble. Human soldiers were fighting their way through his ship, and his own weapons couldn't stop them. How had these primitive creatures become so dangerous? Jake Morrison, now wearing the uniform of a Special Forces captain, led the assault on the command center. He moved through the alien corridors with deadly purpose, his phase rifle cutting down any enemy who stood in his way. Behind him, his Marines followed with the same grim determination. "Sir, we've reached the command center," reported Major Rogers. "The alien admiral is barricaded inside with his senior staff." Jake didn't hesitate. He placed explosive charges on the armored door and blew it open. Inside, Admiral Kethvar waited, with his weapon drawn, but his hand was shaking with fear. "You're Kethvar," Jake said, his voice cold as space. "You're the one who ordered the attack on the new frontier." "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Vex-High Empire," the alien replied, trying to sound brave. "You will surrender or face the consequences." Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I've got something to show you, Admiral." He activated a portable screen that showed recordings from the new frontier attack. "These are the consequences of your actions. 200 innocent people, including children, murdered because you wanted to show off your power." Kethvar watched. The images of human families dying, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never experienced before: guilt. These creatures weren't primitive animals. They were people, just like his own kind, and he had ordered their deaths for no reason except pride. "You wanted to teach us about power," Jake continued. "Well, class is in session. Your fleet is destroyed. Your base is captured. Your empire is about to learn what happens when you push humanity too far." The battle for Zirian Prime ended with complete human victory. The Vixen forces were destroyed or captured, and their major military base was in human hands. But the cost had been significant. 15,000 human casualties, including brave soldiers like Dan Foster. That night, the survivors held a memorial service on the planet's surface. Amy Morrison, who had traveled with the fleet as a war correspondent, spoke about the price of freedom and the courage of those who paid it. Dan Foster died today, she told the assembled soldiers. He died so that other families wouldn't have to suffer like we did. He died so that children could grow up free from fear. We will remember him, and we will make sure his sacrifice means something. Admiral Martinez stood before a wall, listing the names of all the dead. Each name represented a family that would never be whole again, a future that would never be. But they had died for something important, the right of humans to exist in the galaxy without fear. Sir? Captain Brooks approached quietly. We've received word from Earth. The attack on Zarian Prime has had an unexpected effect. Alien species throughout the galaxy are starting to rebel against the Vex-High Empire. They see that the aliens can be beaten. Martinez nodded grimly. The war was far from over. A Vex-High Empire controlled hundreds of worlds and had millions of ships. But today, humanity had proven that they could be defeated. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that someone was finally willing to stand up to the bullies. Send a message to Earth, Martinez ordered. Tell them we've won the first battle, but this is just the beginning. The Vex-High Empire is about to learn that when you threaten human families, you don't just get a war, you get a reckoning. In the distance, the wreckage of the alien fleet drifted in space, a testament to what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and its anger would not be satisfied until justice was served. News of humanity's victory at Zarian Prime spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On worlds that had been enslaved by the Vex-High Empire for centuries, people watched in amazement as the recordings showed human ships destroying the supposedly invincible alien fleet. On the planet Zephyria, an old alien named Kretal watched the battle footage with tears in his eyes. His people had been slaves for 200 years, working in the Empire's mines and factories. They had given up hope of ever being free. Now, these strange creatures called humans had proven that the Vex-High could be defeated. Gather the resistance leaders, he told his son. If these humans can fight the Empire, then so can we. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Species that had been crushed under Vex-High rule began to remember what freedom felt like. They started making weapons, forming plans, and preparing for rebellion. On Earth, the war effort had transformed the entire planet. Lucy Phillips, a civilian engineer, had designed new armor that could stop any Vex-High weapon. Her factory worked day and night, producing protective gear for the troops. She had lost her brother in the New Frontier attack, and every piece of armor she made was her way of fighting back. "This one's for Tommy," she whispered as she finished another breastplate. Her brother had been a teacher on the colony ship, killed when the aliens destroyed the school section. Now his death would help protect other people's brothers and sisters. Greg Turner, a software specialist, created navigation systems that let human ships move through space faster than ever before. His programs could plot courses that took advantage of gravitational fields and space-time distortions. What used to take weeks now took days. "Every minute we save is another minute those alien bastards have to worry," he told his team. "My daughter was supposed to be on that colony ship. She changed her mind at the last minute to stay with her boyfriend. But all those other kids didn't have that choice." The Vex-High Emperor Vexgon sat in his throne room, staring at reports from across his empire. Everywhere, slave species were rising up against their masters. Ships were being destroyed, Bases were being attacked, and his forces were stretched thin, trying to maintain control. How is this possible? He demanded of his military advisor. General Mordock, we have ruled for 1,000 years. These species were broken, defeated. Why are they fighting now? Mordock studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. Emperor, it's these humans. They fight with an emotional intensity we've never encountered. They don't surrender when they should. They don't break when they're hurt. They get stronger. Emotions. Our weakness, the Emperor snarled. We will crush them like we crushed all the others. But even as he spoke, Vexkin felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The humans had destroyed one of his most important bases with ridiculous ease. Their weapons cut through Vex-High defenses like they weren't there. Worst of all, they were inspiring others to resist. Admiral Martinez led the human fleet in a series of lightning attacks across Vex-High space. They would strike hard and fast, destroying military targets before the aliens could respond. Each victory brought more alien worlds into rebellion. Admiral, we're receiving a communication from the Zephyrian Resistance, reported Captain Brooks. They're asking for weapons and tactical support. They want to liberate their homeworld. Martinez smiled. This was exactly what they had hoped for. The humans couldn't fight the entire Vex-High Empire alone, but they could help others fight for their own freedom. Send them everything they need, he ordered, and tell them they're not alone in this fight. Captain Helen Brooks found herself commanding a joint human Zephyrian fleet as they approached the Zephyrian homeworld. The alien rebels had proven to be brave fighters, eager to pay back their oppressors for centuries of suffering. Captain Brooks, this is Commander Kreetal, the alien leader said over the communication channel. My people have waited 200 years for this moment. We will not fail. We won't let you fail, Helen replied. Today, your children will grow up free. The battle for Zephyria was fierce but brief. The Vex-High garrison was outnumbered and outgunned. When the planet's slaves rose up at the same time as the fleet attacked, the alien forces crumbled quickly. By the end of the day, Zephyria was free for the first time in 2 centuries. Back on Earth, Dr. Nenia Walsh made a breakthrough that would change the war. She figured out how to reverse engineer Vex-High technology, taking their weapons and making them even better. Human scientists were improving alien designs faster than the aliens could create new ones. Alex, look at this, she told Dr. Bennett. I've modified their plasma cannons to work with our phase technology. The combination is incredible. The new hybrid weapons were tested on the experimental ship Vengeance, commanded by Captain Rick Stone. The vessel was faster and more powerful than anything either species had built before. It became the prototype for a new generation of human warships. This ship is a game changer, Stone reported after the first test flight. We can outrun anything they have and outgun anything we can't outrun. But the Vex-High were not finished. Emperor Vexkin made a decision that horrified even his own people. If he couldn't control rebellious worlds, he would destroy them completely. He ordered the use of planet-killer weapons against any world that supported the human rebellion. The first target was a small world called Harmony, where a peaceful species had joined the resistance. The Vex-High fleet arrived and, without warning, fired a weapon that cracked the planet's crust. Billions of innocent people died in hours as their world broke apart. The news of Harmony's destruction reached Earth just as Jake Morrison was preparing for another mission. Amy Morrison, now a war correspondent, was with him when the report came in. Father and daughter watched in horror as the images showed an entire world dying. They're monsters, Amy whispered. They killed a whole planet just to scare the others. Jake felt a cold rage building inside him. The Vex-High had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They had committed genocide on a scale that was almost unimaginable. Send a message to Admiral Martinez, he told his communications officer. "Tell him the war just changed. No more mercy. No more prisoners. The Vex High want to play with planet killers. We'll show them what happens when you threaten entire worlds." The destruction of harmony had the opposite effect from what the Emperor intended. Instead of frightening species back into submission, it unified the galaxy against the Vex High Empire. Former allies abandoned them in disgust. Neutral worlds joined the human coalition. Even some Vex High military officers began to question their orders. Admiral Martinez received reports from across the galaxy. The rebellion was spreading faster than ever. The Vex High had made themselves the enemy of every civilized species. "Sir, we're receiving communications from over 50 different worlds," reported his intelligence officer. "They all want to join the fight against the Empire. They're calling it the Liberation War." Martinez nodded grimly. The war had grown beyond anything he had imagined. It was no longer just about avenging the new frontier. It was about freeing the galaxy from centuries of oppression. "Send the same message to all of them," he ordered. "Tell them we'll help anyone who wants to fight for freedom. Tell them that humanity will not stand by while innocents are murdered." On the mining station where the new frontier survivors lived, Amy Morrison prepared for her next broadcast. She had become the voice of the resistance, speaking to billions of people across the galaxy. Her words gave hope to slaves and courage to fighters. "The Vex High Empire destroyed an entire world yesterday," she began. "They killed billions of innocent people just to send a message. But the only message they've sent is that they're afraid. They're afraid because they know their time is ending." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "To every species that has suffered under Vex High rule, we will not abandon you. To every family that has lost loved ones to their cruelty, we will not forget. To every world that dreams of freedom, we are coming." Her broadcast was heard on countless worlds, translated into hundreds of languages. Enslaved camps and occupied cities, people watched and felt something they hadn't experienced in generations. Hope that the Vex High Empire was beginning to crack. Their forces were spread too thin. Their allies were abandoning them, and their enemies were growing stronger every day. The humans had started something that could not be stopped. Emperor Vexcan sat alone in his throne room, surrounded by reports of defeat and rebellion. For the first time in his life, he wondered if the Empire could actually fall. These humans had done something no other species had managed. They had shown the galaxy that the Vex High were not invincible. "General Mordock," he called to his advisor, "gather every ship we have. Bring them all to the capital system. If we're going to die, we'll take as many of them with us as possible." The final confrontation was approaching. The Vex High Empire would make its last stand, and the galaxy would see once and for all what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. The final battle would take place at Vixcareth, the capital world of the Vex High Empire. Emperor Vexcon had gathered every remaining ship in his fleet around his throne world. Over 3,000 alien vessels filled the space around the planet, their weapons trained on the hyperspace jump points. "Let them come," the Emperor said to his assembled commanders. "We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Empire." But even as he spoke, Vexcon felt the weight of recent defeats. His empire was crumbling. Slave worlds were in open rebellion. His allies had abandoned him. Still, he had one advantage. The humans would have to come to him, and he would be ready. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the largest fleet in human history assembled around him. Over 2,000 ships from Earth, plus vessels from dozens of allied species who had joined the fight for freedom. The Zephyrians, the Centauri, the Altarians, and many others had all sent ships to this final battle. "Admiral, all ships report." "Ready," Captain Brooks announced. "The fleet is at full strength," Martinez nodded. He thought about the long journey that had brought them here, from the first attack on the new frontier to this moment. So many people had died. So many families had been torn apart. But today, it would all end. All ships, this is Admiral Martinez, he announced to the massive fleet. Today we finish what they started. Today we show the galaxy that bullies can be defeated. Today we make sure that no species will ever again have to fear the Vex High Empire. On Earth, Dr. Alex Bennett and Dr. Nina Walsh watched the battle preparations from their laboratory. They had one final gift for the fleet: phase storm generators. These weapons could create massive energy storms that would shift entire sections of space out of phase, destroying everything inside. Alex, are you sure about this? Nina asked as they watched the test results. These weapons are incredibly powerful. They could destroy whole fleets in minutes. After what they did to Harmony, I'm sure, Alex replied. The Vex High showed no mercy to innocent people. We won't show mercy to them. The human fleet jumped into the Vex Careth system and immediately faced the largest concentration of enemy ships anyone had ever seen. The Vex High had pulled back every vessel from across their empire for this final defense. The space around their capital world looked like a metal storm cloud, filled with thousands of warships. My God, whispered Captain Stone from the Vengeance. There are so many of them. Numbers aren't everything, replied Kate Wilson, now promoted to commander after heroic actions at Zerion Prime. We've got better weapons, better tactics, and better reasons to fight. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. Vex High plasma cannons lit up space like deadly fireworks, while human phase weapons punched through alien shields. New hybrid ships performed exactly as Dr. Walsh had predicted, adapting to enemy tactics faster than the aliens could change them. Emperor Vexkin watched from his command center as human ships tore through his outer defenses. These creatures fought with a coordination and determination that his forces couldn't match. Every time his commanders thought they had found a pattern, the humans changed their approach. How are they doing this? He demanded. Their computers learn faster than our pilots can think. General Mordak studied the battle data with growing alarm. Emperor, their technology has surpassed ours. Their weapons ignore our defenses, and their tactics adapt in real time. We're not just losing this battle, we're being outclassed. On the surface of Vex Careth, Jake Morrison led a special forces team toward the Emperor's palace. Their mission was to capture Vexkin alive and force him to order a complete surrender. Behind them, thousands of Marines from dozens of different species fought their way through the capital city. Amy Morrison accompanied the ground forces as a war correspondent, documenting the final battle for history. She had grown from a frightened teenager into a strong young woman who had seen too much death and suffering. Today, she would witness the end of the empire that had caused it all. Dad, the palace is just ahead, she reported, running beside the soldiers through the alien streets. The Emperor's guards are making their last stand. Jake nodded grimly. Vexkin had started this war by murdering innocent families. It was fitting that a family would be there to finish it. In space, the tide of battle was turning decisively against the Vex High. Their ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced, while the human fleet's adaptive systems made them stronger with each passing minute. Admiral Martinez watched his tactical display as red dots representing enemy vessels disappeared one by one. Admiral, enemy fleet strength is down to 60%, reported his tactical officer. They're starting to break formation. Good, Martinez replied. Now let's see how they handle the phase storms. The experimental weapons activated for the first time in actual combat. Massive energy storms erupted throughout the Vex High fleet, shifting entire squadrons of ships out of phase with normal space. Hundreds of alien vessels simply vanished, their crews never knowing what hit them. The effect on Vex-High morale was devastating. Ships that had seemed invincible were disappearing, without a trace. Alien commanders who had never known defeat began to panic, their formations falling apart as individual captains tried to save their own vessels. "Emperor, the fleet is collapsing," General Mordock reported in despair. "Half our ships are gone, and the rest are in full retreat. We have to surrender while we still can." "Never!" Vexcan screamed. "I am the Emperor of the Vex-High. I will not surrender to primitive humans." But even as he spoke, human soldiers were fighting their way through his palace. The sound of phase rifles grew closer as Jake Morrison's team eliminated the last defenders. The Emperor's reign of terror was about to end. Jake burst into the throne room with his weapon ready, but he found the Emperor standing alone. Vexcan's guards had fled or been killed, leaving their leader to face the consequences of his actions. "You're finished," Jake said simply. "Your fleet is destroyed, your empire is in ruins, and your people are abandoning you. It's over." Vexcan looked at this human soldier who had traveled so far to bring him to justice. "You think you've won? Other empires will rise. Other species will seek to dominate. This changes nothing." Jake smiled coldly. "You're wrong. This changes everything. You picked a fight with the wrong species. We don't conquer others. We protect them. And now the whole galaxy knows that bullies can be beaten." Amy Morrison entered the throne room and activated her recording equipment. The galaxy would see their former oppressor defeated and humiliated. The Emperor who had ruled through fear was now just a broken old alien begging for mercy. "This is Amy Morrison reporting from the Vex-High capital," she announced. "Emperor Vexcan, the tyrant who has oppressed the galaxy for centuries, has been captured. The Vex-High Empire is finished." In space, the last alien ships were surrendering or fleeing. Admiral Martinez ordered his fleet to accept surrenders and provide aid to damaged vessels. Even in victory, humans showed mercy to defeated enemies. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," he announced. "The war is over. We've won. But remember, we fight to protect, not to conquer. Treat prisoners with dignity. Help the wounded. Show the galaxy what kind of people we really are." The celebration across human space was incredible. On Earth, people danced in the streets. On colony worlds, families wept with joy, knowing their children would grow up free from fear. The nightmare was finally over, but the real victory wasn't. The destruction of the Vex-High fleet. It was what came next. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together. Former slaves became leaders of new governments. The galaxy entered an age of cooperation that no one had thought possible. 5 years later, Amy Morrison commanded her own ship, the New Hope, on a mission to contact unknown species near the galactic rim. The vessel carried diplomats, scientists, and teachers instead of soldiers. Humanity had become the galaxy's protector, but they protected through strength and kindness, not fear. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the stars. His hair was grayer now, and his face showed the lines of a man who had seen too much war. But his eyes held satisfaction. The galaxy was at peace, and his daughter was helping to keep it that way. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown species," his communications officer reported. "They're asking if we come in peace." Jake smiled, remembering another first contact so many years ago. "Tell them yes, we come in peace. Tell them we're here to help, not to conquer. Tell them that's what humans do." In a small cemetery on Earth, a memorial wall listed the names of everyone who had died in the war against the Vex-High Empire. Dan Foster's name was there, along with thousands of others who had given their lives for freedom. Fresh flowers appeared at the memorial every day, placed by families who would never forget the price of peace. The war was over. The galaxy was free, and humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to hit back harder than they ever imagined possible. The sleeping giant had awakened, fought its war, and now kept watch to make sure the nightmare never happened again. The galaxy was safe, and it would remain safe as long as humans remembered the lesson of the new frontier, that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the